Now, if the children will come up for the children's message.
Good morning. Okay, stay standing up. Stay standing up. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to jump up and down as fast as you can. Go, 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 go. Let's see if you can go fast as fast as fast. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop. I don't want you to stop. Do not stop. Don't stop. Can't stop. Gotta keep going.
On morning workout. I couldn't jump up.
Are you getting tired yet? No? Okay, we gotta go. All right, keep going. Are you getting tired yet? If you're tired, you can stop. Okay. Oh, stop when I can do all morning. Hey, now you can sit down. You can sit down now. So that was hard work, wasn't it? And so, what do you have to do when you do all that hard work? What do you have to do afterwards? Rest, right? You have to rest. In the scripture that we read for today, it was about God. It was in the very first book of the Bible called Genesis. It's the story of creation. And it said, for 6 days, God worked nonstop. God created, right? He created the dry land. And we know that he created the day, the night. He created the sun, the moon, and the stars. He created birds and fish and plants and animals, and he created, on the very last day, he also created people. He created us. He said, you're going to be like me in a lot of ways. And then God did something on the seventh day. What do you think God did on the seventh day after all that hard work? What did he do, Emma? He rested. That's right. He rested. And he tells us that we're supposed to rest too. It's called Sabbath. Okay, it's called Sabbath. The Sabbath is time of rest, the time when we're not working. So you guys are busy sometimes, aren't you? You go to school, you do schoolwork, and you have things you do at your house. You have to pick up your toys or pick up your room. Maybe you have other chores that you do at home. If you have pets, you've got to probably take care of your pets, take them for a walk. And so there's work that you do, and that's all important, but God says there's something else that you need to do. You need to take time to rest so that you're not too tired for the work that you do. If all you do is work, you get too tired, and you just can't do a very good job if you're tired. So you do the work that you need to do, God says, but also, this is important, that you need to rest too. So whatever you do, so that we can get new energy and new power and new strength for all that God wants us to do next. Okay, so first we work, and then what do we do? Rest. They're both important. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for the work that you give us to do, but we also give you thanks for the rest that you want us to have. Help us to work and then to rest. We pray in Jesus' name. And all of God's people say, Amen. Amen. You're welcome. I want you to watch this little video here.
Hey Jesus, sorry I'm late. Work was crazy today. No, don't get up. It's okay. Yeah, just got a little bit behind. People were being crazy. That's no problem, Jeff. I'm just going on. I'm glad I made it too. Listen, let's get down to business. I have a lot of work here. A lot of recovery. First things first, Pastor and his wife are at a conference. Keep them safe. I'm not a fan of the assistant pastor. The less he preaches, the better. What else? Ralph, his wife, is getting a tattoo removed. It's a student college party way back when. You know how those things go. It's in a real painful spot. I'm not a fan of football here, but my friend is. If I could have 2 tickets and take him to show him how cool I am so he'd be my friend some more, that'd be great. My dog Nibbles. Got the pink leg. Crickets. You know, now that I'm thinking, I could use a new jacket. I'm getting fuzzies all on this one. Please bless my sister, my mother, my father. Our Father who art in heaven, my neighbor, Cindy, hallowed be thy name. We're sort of training my church to clap on 2 and 4, please. 1 and 3, this is not disco, people. This is serving the Lord. The guy who brings in my shopping cart, found the thing, something I can do to get a raise. Can you read what I wrote here? I think I was dreaming. Oh, it's the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Agriculture, the Secretary of Secretaries, plus their secretaries. Thy kingdom come. And that's what bothers me about my mother. Hey, look at the time there. That's, gotta get going there. Jesus gonna wrap this up and say amen. Amen. Been a pleasure praying with you this fine evening. I'll be talking with you. Have a good day.
How many of us can relate to the video? It's about prayer, but it also tells us what happens sometimes when we get so busy that it's hard really to pause and to spend time with Jesus, isn't it? Sometimes it can be hard for us to do. In the 1960s, there were some experts on time management. They met before a Senate subcommittee to talk about technology. They were talking about all of the advances in technology and how that technology would radically change how many hours of work that people, how many hours a week people actually worked. And they forecasted that the average American within 20 years would be working only 22 hours a week. That was in 1965, I think. The great challenge, he said, would be figuring out what to do with all that extra time. I don't have a lot of extra time, do you? What are we doing wrong, folks? We're supposed to have all this wonderful technology, and the experts have said that within that 20 years, well, we're way past that, we're in about 40-some years, that we would have all of this extra time, that we would be working 22 hours a week, and we would need to be looking for ways to use our time. I'm not there, and I wonder, what am I doing wrong? The truth is that for most of us, we're busy people. We have things to do, we have places to go, we have responsibilities to take care of, with our jobs and our families and our church and our community. Even retired people are busy. Some of the busiest people I know are retired. You know why? Because everybody goes, oh, you're retired. Let me ask you to do this for me. Right? Because you're retired, so you must have all this time. I know that my husband Rich is retired, but he's a pretty busy guy. Doing projects around the house or the church or for one of the kids or volunteering at White Rock. He finds himself pretty busy. We're not lacking for things to do. But what we really lack is the time to rest. This is Labor Day weekend. You say, Pastor, this is Labor Day weekend. How come you're talking about rest? We're supposed to be talking about work. Well, I don't want to talk about work this morning. I want to talk about taking time to rest. We all know that we need rest, don't we? Our bodies need rest. We need sleep at night. We need rest when we have all of this strenuous activity. We know that our physical and our emotional and our spiritual well-being depend on being rested. So we want to take a look at that this morning, this idea of Sabbath taking. I came across the story of an archaeologist, and he had hired some tribesmen to lead him to this archaeological site that was deep in the mountains. And after they had been hiking for a time, they were packing in, they had their packs on, the tribesmen, they just stopped. Took off their packs, they sat down. They wouldn't go any further. And, he tried to urge them and encourage them, we got to get going, let's get going again, we need to leave, and they wouldn't budge, they wouldn't move. And then after a space of time, of their own volition, they got up, they put the packs on their backs, and they started out again. Well, we went from being angry to being curious now. It's like, okay, so how come you wouldn't move when I wanted you to move, and now you're moving? How come you're moving now? And the tribesmen, they answered this way. They said, we were moving too fast. And we had to stop and wait for our souls to catch up. Don't you like that? We had to stop and wait for our souls to catch up. You know, sometimes our lives are like that. They move too fast. We have deadlines, we've got kids' activities, and then there's always the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and the yard work. There's a lot to be done. To the point where sometimes we just feel worn out. And like the tribesmen, we just need to pause. And we need to wait for our souls to catch up with us. And that's what the Sabbath is about. That's what resting is about. This time of refreshing, a chance to catch our breath. Now the idea of Sabbath is not new, is it? It's not new. It's built into the very fabric of creation. It was there from the beginning. It was God's idea, and it started with God. You know, we read the passage from Genesis. It's part of the creation story. On the seventh day, God finished his work of creation. So he rested from all of his work. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy because it was the day when he rested from all of his work of creation. God completed his work, and then God rested. Now, to say that God rested from his work, it literally means that he ceased all activity. That's what it means. He ceased all activity. He stopped his work. He didn't say, well, this project is done. Let me see what other project I need to do next. He didn't do that. He stopped his activity. And then he blessed his rest, and he called it holy. God made that rest a sacred time. Then he commanded his people, that's us, to also take time to rest, time to keep the Sabbath, a time set apart from work. So we're to do that too. We're to rest also. If we look at Exodus 31, verse 17, it says, when God rested, he was refreshed. He worked, he rested, he was refreshed. Now, I don't think that God gets tired the way that we do. We have physical bodies, and we have limitations to what our bodies can do. And the older I get, the more that I recognize that. There are limitations. God doesn't have those limitations. And I wonder if he stopped to rest, so that he could enjoy. He could sit back and he could enjoy all that he had created, all that he had accomplished, the work that he had done. The creation story also tells us that we are created in the image of God. We're made to be like God. And like God, we're also to include Sabbath time. In fact, it's so important that it's one of the 10 Commandments, isn't it? We're to keep the Sabbath. We're to keep it holy. We're to have that time of rest. I like to see rest as God's gift to us. Think about it. What good is working all the time if you never take the time to enjoy what your work provides? Let's see if you can finish this saying. All work and no play. Yeah, some of you know that, right? Some of you know that. Now take that phrase, all work and no play, and put your name in there. Makes Joyce a dull girl. I'm not sure about that, Aaron. The Sabbath is about stopping our work so that we can enjoy the fruit of our work, our families, our lives, our relationship with God, and so that we can thank God for all that God provides us and the abundant lives that we have. In the second passage from Matthew's Gospel, Jesus reminds us that when we rest, we find our rest, our true rest, in Him. He wants to be our resting place. It's important for us to remember that Jesus knew the importance of rest, Sabbath. It was something that he regularly fit into his schedule. It's important for us to remember that even when we think we're busy, there was nobody who was busier than he was in this human life. He was a busy person. And yet, he knew the importance of going off by himself, taking a break, to be alone, to be renewed. Other times, he took his disciples with him. There's a place in Mark 6, and the disciples have just returned from being out in a mission field. They returned and they come back. They've been working, and Jesus says to them, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. In other words, let's take some Sabbath time. There's an old saying, if you don't come apart and rest a while, you will eventually come apart. If you don't come apart and rest a while, you will eventually come apart. Working all the time without a break, it's exhausting. And when we're exhausted, I don't know about you, but I don't think we're our best selves. When we're tired, it affects our judgment, it affects our relationships with other people, it affects our attitudes about things, it affects our creativity. When I feel tired, when I feel overwhelmed by work, when I haven't had a day off in a while, I can be a little grumpy. I can get that way. But if I take some time to rest, I think it helps to put me in a better frame of mind. I like to think I'm more positive. I like to think that I'm more hopeful and more effective and more creative. So on this weekend that celebrates labor and workers, what do we do with this idea of Sabbath rest? How do we incorporate Sabbath rest when we don't feel like we have the time to even take a breath? Well, the first thing is this. I think we need to make a commitment in our minds so that we value rest just as much as we value our work. We know work is important, don't we? God works, and like we're called to also work. We know that Jesus was a carpenter, Paul was a tent maker, and Peter was a fisherman. Work is important. It's important to us and it's important to God, but Sabbath rest is equally important. So what's the solution? What's the answer? This is going to sound really simple, maybe simplistic, maybe overly simplistic, but here's the answer. Are you ready? Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. I didn't say quit your job. I didn't say don't stop doing the things that need to be done, but stop trying to fill every single space of your life, your daily life, with stuff to do. Sabbath says it's time to stop for a while. Stop working, stop rushing, stop and listen to your life. The problem is that in our society, we value work more than we do rest, more than we do Sabbath. Sometimes we even brag about our work, don't we, in our busyness, and we like to wear it like it's some kind of a badge of honor that we wear around. Have you noticed how many conversations start with this? Well, how are you? How are you doing? I'm really busy. Life is just so crazy right now. How many conversations start that way? Well, we talk about how busy we are, how much work we have to do, how crazy life is, all that we have to get done. I do it too. It seems like we take pride in being busy, as though our value and our worth have something to do with the number of things on our to-do list. It's like saying that the busier that we are, the more important we must be, the more indispensable we must be. But our worth isn't based on our busyness, is it? It's based on the fact that we are children of God, created in the image of God, loved by God. The last time I looked, being busy was not listed as a spiritual gift. Now, I might be wrong, but if you find it somewhere, please let me know where that is. Busyness is not a spiritual gift. And the bottom line is that Sabbath rest, that's scriptural, right? Busyness is not. Sabbath rest is holy and it's sacred time. Busyness is not. Sabbath rest leads to health. Physical, emotional, spiritual health. Busyness does not. So what's the answer? Stop. Just stop. And to make a commitment, it's a frame of mind. That rest is a part of our Christian life. God rested. Jesus rested. Why don't we? We're also called to rest. So how do we find time for Sabbath? Right? We're busy. We know that there are some things in life that just need to get done. I think the key is to find a balance. I think there is a rhythm between our work and our rest. God worked and then he rested. It's not either or, it's a both and. How do we find space for both? A woman by the name of Ruth Haley Barton, she wrote a book called Sacred Rhythms. And in it she wrote, Sabbath keeping is more than just taking a day of rest. It's more than taking a day off. It's a way of arranging your life to honor the rhythm of things. Rearranging your life. Work and rest. Fruitfulness and dormancy. Giving and receiving. Being and doing. Activism and surrender. There's a rhythm. There's a balance. It's a way of arranging our lives to find that balance between working and resting. Now, for most of us, to say, well, we need to take an entire day off, a Sabbath off, without doing any work, it isn't practical. It is nearly impossible. And, especially if you've got kids or if you're farming, you've got animals to care for. It seems that there's always something that needs to be done, someone or something that needs to be taken care of. But what if we looked at arranging our lives to include Sabbath moments, intentional periods of rest throughout the day? And the word intentional, that's intentional, and it's important. It's a frame of reference, a frame of mind. As I was preparing the sermon, I came across an illustration that used an orchestra as an example. For example, if I'm playing in the orchestra and I'm playing the instrument and I have my music before me, the part for my instrument will include times of activity, times where I'm playing. It will also include times of rest, these pauses in the music. There's a rhythm. It's a rhythm that includes these short pauses. So what if in our lives we could find this sacred rhythm that includes times of activity and times of Sabbath? Time to rest and reflect, time to rest and be grateful, time to rest and enjoy God's presence, time to rest and look back on the accomplishments of the day. How many of us, when we get to the end of the day, we're so busy, we're running. How many of us take the time to do what God did and to sit back and to enjoy the accomplishments of the day, to sit back and enjoy the blessings of the day, of each day? When we do that, that becomes a Sabbath moment to look back. It's an intentional time, and some people, they do this. Some people might have a blessing journal, right? Where at the end of the day, they'll take time and just write down a few things. Reflect back on what's been accomplished. To find a Sabbath moment is to find a time to enjoy life with our families and our friends. It's a time to let our souls catch up with our bodies. What does it look like? We have work to do. There are some things that have to be done, and we know that's true. Here are just some thoughts, some ideas for what a Sabbath rest, a time of Sabbath, could look like. I have a clergy friend who crochets, and it is part of her Sabbath time. She can pray when she crochets, she can do it alone, she can do it watching TV with her family, but for her, it's a time away from work. It's an intentional time, it's a sacred rest. Maybe it's going for a short walk, or having an early morning cup of coffee, or watching a sunrise or a sunset, going for a float down the river, or a run or a bike ride, stopping to play with the kids or the grandkids or the dog. Make something, read something, pray. Any of these can provide Sabbath moments, a time to connect with God, a time to rest from the busyness of life. This is the key. Sabbath is sacred time. Sabbath is God-ordained time. Sabbath is life-giving time. It's a gift. It's about our focus. It's about intentionality. It's about mindfulness. That I'm taking a step away, a time apart for Sabbath. I wear this Fitbit. Maybe some of you have a Fitbit. And it's supposed to track the steps that I take, the exercise, and all of that stuff. For me, it's mostly a watch. But the cool thing about this Fitbit is that at 10 minutes before every hour, it vibrates. It vibrates. It's supposed to remind me to get up and move. But what if it instead reminded me that I need to take some Sabbath time? That I need to maybe just get up and move, to go around outside and walk around the block, or to read a few verses of scripture, or calm down and sit quietly with my eyes closed for a few minutes to reflect on all that God is doing. Some people are early risers. What if instead of jumping right into the day, some of us who are early risers do, right? We just jump right into the day, the things that need to be done. But what if instead we sat quietly with a cup of coffee time to pray, or just to enjoy this quiet time. For some of us, maybe it's the things that we do with our families. A few days ago, I got the email that gave Tyson's, my grandson's, soccer schedule for this fall. And for me, watching a 7-year-old soccer game is Sabbath time. It's time to enjoy family. It's a time to thank God for the blessing of family. Again, it's a mindset, a frame of reference, and bringing God into these moments. Here's something that I think we need to remember, is that when our life feels like it's out of kilter, it's out of rhythm, it's out of balance, to try and incorporate some of those intentional Sabbath moments into the schedule. Find a rhythm that includes work and rest, something that works for you, something that works in your life. Another thing that's important is to realize that taking Sabbath time sharpens us for the work that we do. Rest makes us more productive, not less productive. How many of you, when you're reading something, find yourself reading the same paragraph over and over? Have you done that? You read it and you realize, oh, I wasn't paying attention. You know, that happens when we're tired, when we're overly tired. So what's the best thing to do? To step away for a little while and to rest. I think the same way, when we take time to rest, it sharpens us. It makes us more engaged. It gives us more energy. Then for the work that we have to do, it makes us more productive, not less. Because that's the excuse we often give, isn't it? I'm too busy to stop. I'm too busy to rest. And yet in the resting, we do a better job with the work that we do. And one last thing. We don't want to forget weekly worship as Sabbath time. This is Sabbath time. This is a time when we have stepped away from the things that we have at home, the things that we have to do. We've stepped away to come and to meet with God, to have a time of rest. We know that our worship, it feeds our souls, and it renews us, and it refreshes us, and it helps us to just recenter. Come and find the quiet center, right? To recenter on Jesus. I've had people say to me that, if they miss worship on Sunday mornings, it feels like the week doesn't start right. But worship, it helps them get started. Worship helps us connect with God and with other people. It gives us the energy. It gives us an attitude adjustment. It gives us the creativity that we need as we begin a new week. It can make our work better, more productive, more centered. Friends, here's what I want us to take away on this Labor Day weekend. Even as we celebrate work and those who work, we also need to celebrate God's gift of Sabbath rest, because it's a gift to us. It restores us, refreshes us, reconnects us to our source of life, to Jesus. And that's all that really matters.